Awesome. Hi, I'm Annabeth. And this is week 2 of How to Circle. I almost went like, any questions? But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So I want to start the same way as last week, but I want to use a different definition of what is circling this time. And this is the one that I came up with this week. Humans being intentionally. Is that kind of, what was the smile?
I really like that.
Yeah. Does it need more explanation?
Do you want to explain that?
I mean, here's where it's like, it seems completely straightforward to me. So I think I'm just checking, like, is it straightforward to everyone?
I think it's straightforward, but I want to hear your explanation anyway.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I'm like playing with human beings. But I think a lot of you probably have heard this phrase, like, are you a human being or a human doing? And I think a lot of times in circling, we can kind of accidentally be humans doing, right? We kind of fall into this mindset of thinking this is some sort of a group therapy practice, or that, you know, we're here to have some sort of emotional breakthrough, or we're here to have connection. But it is a meditation practice. So we're here to be with our humanness. And we're doing it intentionally. We've got guiding principles. We're following in a lineage. Yeah, I think I could keep kind of making words happen, but I like the ones I just said. Okay, great. Welcome. What's your name?
Jacob.
Jacob, welcome.
Thank you.
Annabeth.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to get to that. Okay. It'll make sense later. All right, are we ready to move forward? Awesome. Okay, so we're reviewing from last week. So the rules of circling, it's just the one that I could come up with, which is be you. You can't not be you. I've literally seen someone wear a mask to circling, and yeah, Joel saw it too, and he was being himself. That was him being him. So you can't, break the rules. What's allowed at circling here at Austin Circling Studio is legal things. And what's not allowed here is illegal things. But elsewhere, I mean, it's not against circling, right? So it's just, we want to be legal. Okay, right? So that's pretty clear. Awesome. Great. Game show round 2. Good circling or bad circling. So maybe some of you haven't played the game show. If you have, and you know the answer to the initial question, maybe hold back for a sec. Let the people who don't know the answer get a whack at it. So here's this week's segment of good circling or bad circling. Pat attended a circle, and the whole time he never spoke a word. Was that good circling or bad circling?
Good circling.
It was good circling?
Neutral.
And all right,
Neutral.
let's raise hands. Let's raise hands. Who says it's good circling? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. We got a half a hand. 3.5. Who says it's bad circling? Nobody.
No, I'll do it.
Okay.
Yes, do.
Just to hold it down. All right. Does anybody want to say the correct answer?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
We don't know yet. Why don't we know yet?
Don't know why. he was quiet.
We don't know why Pat was quiet. Don't know why. So let's find out. Let's go through some options of why Pat was quiet and just see what was up. See what we think. Let's just judge the heck out of Pat. 1. Throughout the whole evening, Pat genuinely felt no desire to speak.
Good circling.
Good circling.
Yeah. That's great. That is entirely allowed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nailed it. Great. Onward. 2. Every time Pat felt the desire to say something, it was always totally off topic from what everyone else was talking about. He thought it would be rude to change the subject, so he stayed quiet.
Bad.
So bad.
Oh, wow.
Good.
Was that like and Pat's a bad person?
Circling.
Wait, why is it so bad?
Because he wasn't. What's the word? He wasn't trusting experience.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, how do we know that though? Because what if he's like working on his rudeness internally?
Is Pat a he,
Huh?
by the way?
Is Pat what?
A he.
Good point.
Well, I said he.
That's true.
Yeah, he. Yeah.
Like a lot of times.
Thank you.
All right, so he wasn't trusting his experience.
Yeah, and Pat is working on his rudeness, but he's like way ruder than this. Like it's not a good example of his rudeness. Yeah.
It sounds like he's very not rude, right? Oh, I think it might be rude if I say this, so I'm not going to talk. Yeah?
I think it's the wording of felt the desire, and then so he stayed quiet. Those two things together kind of go like, yeah, you know, like you feel the desire to say something, even if it's sort of off. I think it's important to say it and not keep yourself quiet.
Why is it important?
Because it's being true to yourself, and if you're having a reaction to something, whether it's like rude or not, I think it's important to express it, and then your community can tell you whether or not it is rude or not. You have to like trust that your community is going to tell you that it's rude. It's the first time here, so.
Yeah!
Oh, wow.
I love that you're willing to just jump in. It's so cool.
Wow.
So cool.
Why are you giggling?
Yeah, Tank?
I'm just like trying to think about like, well, I mean, what does it mean to be true to your experience? Like, is that feeling of intruding part of your experience as well? Is that something that's worth thinking about, or like maybe you tell yourself no for a reason?
Yeah?
Sounds like a really good thing to circle about.
Right. Right. I think Tang made a really important point, which is like, actually, we kind of still don't know yet if this is good circling or bad circling. However, like, I like that Toba brought up trusting experience. So, kind of one of the kind of core premises of circling is that nothing could possibly arise that's unrelated. So you can't actually be off topic. Whatever it is you're experiencing, like, can't be off topic because you are one of the people in the circle. You are part of the we. And so whatever you're experiencing is part of the us. So it is welcome. Even if there are people in the room who would think it's rude. That's one of the things we practice in circling is like, what if we invite those things too? Like, what if those things are allowed also? Yeah? Yeah.
And another thing is sometimes I'll be thinking something in circle, like in another circle that I'm in, and I'll be like, oh, I can't say that, it's rude. And then someone else will say it, and someone will agree with it and like relate to it. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's about speaking that thing. You're probably not the only one. It's also.
You might not be the only one. That's right. Okay. We pretty clear on this one? We ready to move on? Let's move on. Let's judge Pat some more. 3. Pat held rich eye contact with someone across the circle for a long time. He put his hand on someone's back for support while they shared. A cuddle puddle formed around him in the middle of the circle. He'd been so interactive that no one, not even Pat himself, realized he hadn't spoken a word at all that night.
Terrible circling.
Circling.
That's a joke. Cool. Yeah. Anybody else?
Good circling.
Yeah, it says pretty great.
Unless he was using all the touch to hide from himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he was doing that and he was paying attention to the fact that he was doing it and kind of just being like, okay, what does it feel like to let myself hide from this person? I'd say that's all right. Like, just because something's arising doesn't mean you have to confront it right now, right? So it's like welcoming it to whatever layer it's welcomable. And if that layer is inside me but not yet with us, like, okay. Yeah. But I think in circling we are attempting to see that it's happening, right? To kind of actually pay attention to what are our motives at any given moment. Yeah.
I love that as I'm sitting with these questions, there's something like the answer isn't the thing.
The answer isn't what?
The answer isn't the thing. Getting the right answer isn't the thing. The process of thinking, what is this? This is kind of circling in itself, and that feels much better to me when I get nervous if I think, oh, that's wrong. What about me?
Yeah. Well, this is where it's been interesting to try to create this, because when people who are new to circling or who haven't circled before ask these really straightforward questions where they want a clear yes or no answer, they are never satisfied with our answers because that's not where circling lives. And so this is the most direct that I can get, is basically inviting you into the literalness of the unknown, the literalness of the exploration. That's about as close to a straightforward answer as I know how to get right now. Awesome. Onward! 4. Pat thought nobody really cared about him. He sat in the corner, not looking at anyone, waiting to see if someone would notice and bring him into the conversation. No one did. What?
Don't do that, Pat.
Don't do that, Pat!
Don't do that.
No, Pat, no. Don't do that.
Why not? Why shouldn't Pat do that?
I heard that.
It's gross.
What's gross about it?
Like when I imagine doing the same thing and like wanting a thing that I'm gonna hope somebody else does for me, like I feel gross. I feel like sad and I hate myself. Yeah. Doesn't feel good.
Does he blame everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this premise, he seems to be... I mean, I wrote it. Yes, he's blaming everybody.
I think if I was Pat in this situation, I would blame myself, which seems equally gross.
It just seems like Pat's not going to come back.
Oh.
Having had this
And then,
experience.
and so if Pat doesn't come back, then what?
It's just not circling anymore.
Yeah, he's definitely not circling. He's not at Austin Circling Studio.
Tells me that you're part of a weird cult.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't mean to make fun of you. Do you have a...
I was going to say, like, I feel like I've had this experience in circling. But there's, like, something in people who, like, circle past this point where, like, you, like, recognize that there's something really important having had the experience and being like, I did that. Like, I take responsibility for it, and I'm like, change it next time or something like that. You know, so.
I heard like noticing and overcoming like the victim mentality.
Right, yeah. This is definitely, like, he's kind of walking in with a victim mindset.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares about me. So it's kind of like, it's a setup. Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to sit here and test everybody and see if they actually care about me. And there's this one thing that they could do to show me that they care about me. But of course, the rest of us in the room are like, oh, I'm going to practice not caretaking. I notice him.
Yeah.
I really notice this guy in the corner that's not saying anything, but like, I'm trying to break my caretaking habit. So like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to trust that if he wants to speak, he's going to speak. And then he's like, nobody cared about me.
Yeah. It's like what happens to you in life when you act this way will happen to you as well in a circle.
Yeah.
But it's like he comes back and does it again, and then comes back and does it again, and like finally deals with it.
Yeah.
It was like good circling the whole time, I think. In retrospect.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, at the end, he's like, I need to do this. I did that to myself.
Right, and that's where we again get to like, is he actually observing? Like, is he completely believing that it's everybody else's fault, or is he actually observing? Like, wait a minute, you know, like this situation might not have been exactly what I thought it was, because that would be the only circumstance in which he would come back, really. If he thought like, no, that was just a room full of assholes who don't care about me, like, why would you go back?
Is there a sense of like good or bad circling for a group? Is it all internally oriented? Because I feel like I felt like an assumption that I'm feeling a little bit of tension with, that the group wouldn't engage to some degree. I'm getting the premise about like Pat having some bad internal circling, and I'm totally never circled before.
Great.
But yeah, it feels like there's a little at odds with like the group mentality of totally being hands off.
Well, we, like, at any given circle, we don't know what people are going to show up, what mindset they're in that day, kind of where they are in their own mindfulness practice. And so we don't know. I mean, a lot of times somebody does see somebody who's quiet and say something, but a lot of times in circling, nobody does, because it is definitely a self-driven practice, just like any other type of meditation. I can't meditate you. Sure. I could lead you in a guided meditation, but you might still just be sitting there making a grocery list in your mind. Right? You can sit there with your eyes closed and look like you're meditating. I can't. And I'm, you know, when I'm facilitating, like, I can't make y'all circle, right? I can like throw a little hissy fit when I don't like it, you know. Yeah, David.
The other thing that's interesting is that from our perspective, situation number 4 looks identical to situation number 1 or 2, where Pat did the same thing. So there's not any way for us to know there's a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that, especially in surrendered leadership, there tends to be an assumption of autonomy. Of, if Pat wants to talk, he's going to talk. That's more of the culture we tend to follow, I think. Did I see a hand up over here?
I had one, but it left me.
Okay. If it returns.
I have another thought. When I think about this, and then I look at the 5 principles, and I wonder, do the 5 principles apply? You know, in these questions, is it reasonable to think, can I evaluate from the 5 principles whether this is good service?
Well, on this one, he's not owning his experience.
Right.
So, yeah, he's not really following that principle right now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And commitment to connection is.
Well, commitment to connection is really, it's interesting because it doesn't mean I'm forced to connect with another human being. Like, if I haven't connected to myself first, like, I think that one is going to need to take priority, because if I'm not in me, then there's not a me to connect with someone else.
How about be with the other in the world is actually interesting then. That actually is an interesting way. Because there's something, it's weird in this case, the assumption is they don't like me. But I'm not actually with them and where their experience is. Right?
He's not finding out.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting one if he would say at some point in the circle, like, hey, I thought all of y'all would care about me enough to like ask me to speak. Like, what is going on for y'all in connection with me? That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be being with us in our world, and yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay. 5. Pat noticed that there were mostly men in the room. He remembered someone mentioning that men dominated interactions, and he didn't want to do that. He kept his mouth shut so a woman would have the opportunity to speak. All right. Feel a little heat in the room. I went there. What's up? Yeah, what do you think? Bad circling. Why?
I think you should just say that out loud. Hey, I'm feeling a little weird because I don't want to dominate this room. I want women to have the opportunity to speak. When you speak for them also feeling this way or whatever it is, and not just remain silent. I mean, yeah, there has been cases where I've been in situations where it's like, oh my god, can I get one damn word in, you know, like the only woman in the group, but it's like, you just walk away from situations, but when it comes to circle, it's different, you know, I think. And there's like sometimes in circle where it's like only men are talking. It's like they have the floor tonight, and it's beautiful. You know, they have their experiences and they relate to one another, and it's like, and then some nights where it's like women are only talking, and I think that that the circle should go where it's supposed to go, and we shouldn't like try to force it because of like gender shit. That's my thought.
Cool.
Nice.
In a way, like there's like a good circling element, which is like if you want to see something happen in the group, like do it yourself. So if what he wants to see is like less men talking, and he like does it himself, and it's like in a way that's pretty cool.
But
That's cool.
I also think that there's like a type of avoidance of owning the parts of yourself that are maybe do speak over women. Like maybe I do that and I have to like deal with the fact that I'm doing that and not pretend that I can always consciously sort of keep that, you know, tamped down in this sort of like way that I feel like is happening or like can happen with this type of thinking.
Yeah, I think this one's super intriguing because like I can find perspectives, right? Like one perspective is like at this circle it's just us. Like in some ways we're like just like any meditation, it's kind of like you're just here, and so it's like, okay, like, you know, what is this us, and who has anything that actually even wants to be voiced right now. And then yeah, I like what you said, Tang, about like I think in circling we do tend to more kind of like bring what's happening and then be willing to receive impact about it from other people. And I've certainly heard women willing to name when they felt like men were dominating the talking. So that kind of impact does come up around here. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Yeah, if mostly men are in the room, mathematically, mostly men are going to speak, right? I mean, so, and let's see, which quadrant, is it third quadrant with integral theory that's like taking into account like the greater systems of the world we're living in? Is that third quadrant? Yeah. So it's like, if someone in the room is really struggling with this right now, like, that's real for them. That's what's up for them. Yeah. Anything else on this one? Are you holding your mouth closed? No.
Oh no, I'm just smelling my fingers.
Okay, smelling fingers.
What?
Okay. Okay.
Stop making extra words.
Onward 6. This was Pat's first time circling, and he had no clue what was going on. He wanted to just observe until he could figure out how this circling thing works.
Bad facility.
You're like, I sure hope so. God, please let that be good circling. Ben, you don't know.
It doesn't matter, it seems.
What do you mean?
I don't know. That's what came to my mind. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad circling. It's just like, just what he's doing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. Thanks, Dara.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I agree with that. And every once in a while you'll hear somebody say, like, circling is a participation sport. So there is a reasonably potent aspect of it that you can't experience without actually participating. And it's perfectly fine to choose not to. I mean, that's just like it's fine to leave at any given moment if you want to. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, if you want to do it, just go do your thing. If you need to pick up, yeah.
I love these examples because this one can easily, without noticing, turn into 4, where I've chosen to be quiet. Something happens. I feel like something should happen, that I should fix this, but I'm still quiet because I'm observing. So I get stuck in a loop of, now I'm not with myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like if that actually genuinely happened the whole time, then cool. But if he said to himself at the beginning, like, I'm just gonna observe this, then he's like stuck in, I'm just observing this the whole time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Especially like, and it's like, it is kind of sweet when somebody's like, okay, I'm gonna wait until I know what the fuck is going on and then I'll join in. And like, you're not gonna like figure it out just by like attending a circle. It just like doesn't really necessarily make sense. And so then when like people kind of just jump in and try a thing, and then people like give their impact and all this stuff, and then it's like, whoa! And then they feel like they fucked up because maybe another newbie was like kind of shot them down, but like they don't actually know how to circle very well either. But then that person thinks like, oh, they don't know that they're a newbie too. And they're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That kind of thing does happen. So it's tricky.
It's interesting because it's kind of like, if that happens and I think I'm a passenger because I'm just observing, then that's kind of a miscue, right? It's kind of like I'm a passenger, but all of a sudden that merging needs to happen, and now I'm, like you said, now I'm in this moment where something needs to happen. I'm supposed to do something, and I don't know what to do because I haven't.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to be in the driver's seat all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
There's something like, I'm always driving, even if I'm quiet, I'm driving, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do continually compare this to like solo meditation. Because like when I close my eyes and I'm with all that stuff in here, it's like, you know, am I kind of spiritually bypassing and just kind of like observing but like not really letting myself be with it? Or am I like totally enmeshed and I like believe that my emotions are these like total truths in the world? So like how am I even interacting with myself? And so we're just doing that interpersonally here. It's the exact same process. And we're all at different places with it. Okay. Yeah.
So you're in that an assumption that like the more entangled and like connected to your own emotions, and expressing that as like good circling, and like spiritual bypassing and kind of being like disconnected or maybe like speaking at or around is like a bad? I would say that both of those are kind of polar opposites of kind of maladaptive ways of being with your emotions. So we're trying to practice some more.
But yeah, I mean, circling is like, all right, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. If this is where you're at, that's where you're at.
There is like an embrace of being maladaptive. And just like being in it rather than like, I need to like wait until I'm not maladaptive to
right.
Like
Because if you're bringing the maladaptive thing and then you're getting real impact, then you're experiencing the maladaption as opposed to everybody just kind of being nice to you, and then you're not actually experiencing like kind of the full impact of your choices. So here it's kind of like, yeah, let's take this one out for a spin. Oh, I didn't like that. I might try a different way of being. See if I like that one better.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is like the whole like crux of this like example is that he's silent the whole time. So like we're welcoming Pat to bring whatever's actually happening for him. Like if you think that the women sound stupid talking, it's like, okay, Pat, like bring it, and like over time we can like grow some finesse around how to communicate that maybe, but like what's actually under it, you know? But don't just be silent. That's what's happening.
Or be silent.
Or be silent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like a harsh example.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying like I would rather like hear something and.
Well, I would say that the speaking up tends to be a little bit more adaptive in circling, but we also welcome the not speaking.
Sure.
It's like, it's kind of like turtles all the way down of like, what are we welcoming? Well, you know. That's why, you know, the only rule is be you, and what's allowed is legal things. It's like everything else, we're just like, all right, let's welcome that. Let's see how that goes.
Also,
that's how that went.
Hearing that comment there, the thing comes up to mind as well. If the thing is, oh, I think the women talking are stupid, and I don't hold that, I don't want to be silent, I want to say it. That, the whole, you know, that being welcome because it's not illegal doesn't mean there's no impact of that.
Oh, yeah.
So there definitely is, the full range of impact is still there.
Yeah.
So that's included as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I use that extreme example. Like there's going to be a lot of impact.
Yeah.
That's also,
All right, last one for Pat. Pat desperately wanted to speak, but didn't feel like he deserved to take the attention of the group. He spent the whole circle deeply hoping someone would bring the attention to him so he could finally get it off his chest.
Oh, poor guy.
This,
Worst circle.
what? Stephen and David, maybe Joel would know this. This was Annabeth for her first year and a half of circling. And I got to where I was like, I would hide loudly. I was silent, but I was just like, you know, and like desperately trying to energetically make it clear, like, I'm not okay. Yeah. Oh, maybe I should have brought that up later, because now any feedback you have for Pat is like dissing Annabeth from a few years ago. It's alright. She was just in a maladaptive thing. I made it. I didn't get kicked out of circling.
Do you regret that?
Huh?
Do you regret that about it?
I can't possibly regret it because I didn't have access to a better means. The only other thing I seemed to have access to was what we ended up calling throwing grenades. So it's like, if I could like get something to like shoot through all my fear, it would just be like, and I would like go hide because it was so scary to like shove it through all my fear. So I was like not like committed to connection because I would like hurl something out and then go hide and not like too scared to like be with the impact of it. Except that I kept being with the impact of that. I mean, then people were with me having done that and then hiding, and
I also think it's really beautiful the range of the examples you gave didn't exactly name this, but we have had a couple of members who stuck through kind of saying, right, I feel like nobody likes me, and owning that. I am afraid y'all are going to kick me out. Time after time. Not only am I afraid of it, I'm sure of it. You're going to kick me out.
Yeah.
You won't allow me to stay here.
yeah.
And eventually like, interesting. Nobody ever kicked me out.
Yeah. I mean, one of our facilitators, a couple of our facilitators still say it pretty regularly at our facilitator meetings. I don't know how often they say it in their circles, but they're still pretty sure, like, no, I'm not actually in the crew. You don't actually want me. Yeah. But that, you know, that's one of the turtles we welcome. Yeah. All right. We played the game. Good job, everybody. Yay! 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 Okay. Onward. good circling things that don't happen in bad circling. That's the best wording I could come up with. Yeah? It's just, can we move forward with this wording?
I love it.
Okay. All right. Good. Great. Okay, 1. Knowing that anything I notice in someone else shows me more of myself. So the kind of quick word we use for that is mirror. Seeing the mirror. Say what?
These different from last week?
These are different from last week.
So we're starting back at 1 now?
This is the first one of the second session.
We're at 1B.
That's so much
Also
love for you
known
right now.
as 7.
No.
Okay.
Dara's in charge of no reading from now on.
I'm trying to see like what this shows me about me.
I am surprised. But it's fine.
It's not fun.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh man. Yeah, but people who are here for the first time would be so confused if I said number 8.
Number 7.
Number 7.
7. See? I'm not even paying attention now. All right. So let's actually like get into the meat of this. Does this make sense?
It's like it makes sense, but I've been looking for it and not totally understanding it in practice.
Yeah.
Same.
The way in me that has been the easiest to access, this may not work for any of the rest of you, but it kind of works for me, is imagining like I am like a radio tower and like I can like only receive the channels that I have. Like I can only notice something that I recognize enough to notice it. So something in me is like, that's a thing that we know about, this me. There it is too. And then my favorite version of this is why I love birthday circling so much, which is when I'm birthday circling someone who they're like with something that they hate themselves about. They cannot love this thing in them. But I find it so easy to love it in them. But then I find that same thing in me, and I'm like, oh yeah, but I can't love it in me. And it's like, okay, well, if I'll let myself see that mirror, if I can love them for it, then like, how about like some non-hypocrisy in the way I live my life? Then like I get to get loved for it too. I like the way Bloss taught it to me. He's like, so get your love hose squirting real strong, and then just go like this. And then I think the hardest version of this for me is when something's going on that I don't like and I want to reject or I want to ignore. Then I look and I'm like, where am I rejecting and ignoring that in me? And then like just letting the external connection like help me like see the same signal that's happening in me and be like, oh God, I don't like being with that part of me. Oh God. Oh. And then just do the inside one first, right? Instead of being like, stop doing that. It's like, pay attention to like stop doing that at me. And like, oh, that's a thing that I didn't see when I was alone, but I see it now.
There's a part of that specific piece that I get that I don't know that everybody works the same perfectly, but something like, if I don't like something and I'm trying to make it go away, it's not actually the thing in me. It's like there's some protector controller in me that doesn't like that part of me.
Right.
And that's the part that's loud. And I can't sometimes even hear where in me the voice is that's that's trying to respond. And so I almost have to allow the part of me that's upset to say, hey, I get it. Can we though listen? What's happening to me? I have to kind of team up with myself to listen more deeply.
And that's where it can, if you are in that mindset, then it can be really beautiful to actually let your curiosity go external and actually ask the human person in the room the questions, and then use that to learn to help you hear the part of you too. Like when the person says blah blah blah, then you ask that part of you, like, do you have that too? And it's gonna be like, yeah, I do. And they'd be like, oh God, okay. Because I don't know, my mean voice is not as mean to other humans as it is to me, right? So I'm probably gonna, right? And then again, use that to teach me how to be more with me. Deal? Yeah, we got it? Score. 2, noticing habitual patterns and choosing not to participate. This one's tricky, and I've got some examples. All right, so I just want you to notice, like, if there's an automatic response in you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's happening, right? It's just like, it's happening, that response, right? So then, what does it take to assume that I actually mean it? Hi, how are you? Are you having to like take a different path in there to go like actually look for the real answer? Right? All right, here's another one. Thank you. Right? Right? And that one's really interesting because that's a way to also like kind of avoid really feeling the thank you. Right?
That hits.
Right? So what if you hear a thank you and you just wait until you actually believe it? You just sit there and act like a weird person. Because they're going to expect the automatic answer, for sure. Right? That's the thing. We kind of practice this stuff in circling because, like, you're allowed to seem like a super weird person here. Whereas once you start test driving this stuff in real life, like, people are like, why haven't you said the automatic answer yet? But they don't even, like, have those words. They're like, oh, is something wrong? You didn't say, fine, how are you? Like, so that means something's wrong. The fact that you paused at all means there's something wrong and you're trying to figure out how to tell me. It's like, no, I'm actually just... I feel really
just hear the director all saying, going, line.
The next words are, I'm fine, how are you? Right? But then even the I'm fine, how are you, did you mean it? Do you actually want to know how they are right now? Right? I do this when I teach my music lessons, right? Every time I see my new student, you know, I'm like, hey, how are you? And then they're like, fine. And I'm like, awesome. And then I actually want to know how you are. So then, like, how are you actually?
Aww.
Especially with my singers, because, like, the body is the instrument. So if they're tense right now, that's going to make a huge difference in what we're going to do today. If they're in mourning, the instrument's going to be in a different position. So, like, you know, I, like, literally want to know how you are. Yeah, here's another one. Do you want a hug? You feel how, like, you kind of feel like you're supposed to say yes. You didn't, like, necessarily, like, check. Like, do I want a hug? What does it feel like to want a hug? And do I want it from you? Let me find out. Right? Right.
Maybe for me, the automatic answer that comes up is sure, which is like.
Right. Right. I think that's the automatic one for a lot of us. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then, you know, it's interesting. I don't know, man. I started to like my niece is what is she, 5 or 6? 6. She is so self-possessed. She is such her own entity. And so I visited them recently for Thanksgiving, and it was kind of like, oh, Luna, give Annabeth a hug. And then I saw her hesitate, and I'm like, no, you don't have to give me a hug if you don't want to. You really don't. Like, that's fine. Like, we are kind of, there is kind of this expectation of, you don't get to want it first. Yeah, okay. You don't actually like me. You wish I would just leave already. No, I don't. Right? As opposed to like, well, if you're going to talk like that, kind of. I mean, like, this particular interaction isn't quite fun for me. Right? You feel kind of you feel the one that makes the words want to come out of your mouth before they even got to find out where you are.
That kind of triggers like attachment styles though, because I would be like, bye.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if that's automatic, if that's habitual.
It is habitual.
Yeah. All right, I think I got 1 or 2 more. Are you breaking up with me right now? No, sure not, no. Right?
What if you are?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, are you breaking up with me right now? Yes. I mean, yeah, maybe. But there is this habitual, like, defensiveness that kind of wants to hop out. Like, when anything kind of feels like an accusation, it's kind of like, huh, right? Whereas it's like, I don't know yet. But the way you just asked that question is kind of tipping the scales for me. I'm trying to figure this out, though. I mean, like, what's, like, at least finding the honest answer in you. And then, like we talked about last week with discernment, like, utilizing discernment in what you're actually going to say to them, right? But, like, find out what the actual answer is for you. All right, this might be the last one. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Or, are you okay? One time, I was so deep in this, like, self-reflective headspace. I was at a party at Jordan's, and I was just sitting there, just kind of just feeling this new way of interacting with the world. And somebody came up and they were just like, are you okay? And like, I just did not know how to answer that question. And like 3 minutes later, I was like, was it you? I think it might have been you. I was sitting on the counter. And my answer 3 minutes later was, I'm not okay. And they were like, okay, I'm gonna go do something else now. I'm like, all right. It's fine. Right? Okay. So we kinda understanding this habitual response thing.
A good habitual response thing that comes in with circling.
Yeah.
Which is either something like, what made you say that, or why do you say that, or what do you know, there's something
What's that like?
What's
that
like?
That question brings up.
We've just gotten more clever with the habitual response.
Well, we kind of like, we have like better ones, you know? What's that like? It's pretty good, but like, yeah, if it's habitual. I actually did this, I was facilitating a couple of weeks ago, and I was warming us up, and I gave us like, you can only speak if you start with one of these 3 sets of words. And so then, I think we were birthday circling you, and you said something, and I was like, what's that? Oh. I let my own kind of structure make me notice like, oh, that was habitual. Like, oh, okay. How do I actually want to be with him right now? Yeah. So it's like, yeah. It happens at every layer. Okay. 3. prioritizing my body wisdom equal to my mind. I worded that very intentionally this way because it can be kind of common, like if somebody's very in thought or in story, that somebody's like, but how does that feel in your body? How is that in your body? And there can get to be this feeling like thoughts aren't allowed. And I think the actual goal is like we want like visceral wisdom and an intuition, the felt experience. We want that to have equal weight. But the way our society raises us, it highly prioritizes development of thoughts in the mind and logical processes. So that one's just real good. We're very good at that, and we're not so good at like just basic embodiment intelligence. So we often do need to kind of over prioritize, like we need to put a lot more attention on that just to like have like a hope at any type of equality there. Does that make sense?
Why equal?
As opposed to?
Any other options?
Well, because that's the word I chose this time. That's how it seems to work in me. If I kind of if I get kind of too into my visceral sensations without including my brain hardly at all, then I can kind of get wrapped up. I can kind of go down this rabbit hole of senselessness. Like I like kind of lose my ability to kind of integrate my experience with reality.
Make meaning.
Yeah, I do find that I need like at any given moment I need kind of a structure through which I am kind of getting my best guess as to what's happening right now. And sometimes my best guess is like, oh, this is an unknown arising in my physical sensations, and I might not ever know. I don't know if I'm answering your question the slightest. I might not be able to. Yeah. Anything else on this one?
This is actually a really good one for me. It's actually, I love the way that you name that and presence that. When I came to circling for the first probably 2 years, if I allowed my mind to assert itself, it took charge. Like, there wasn't a way to do equal. If I included it, it was the boss.
Yeah.
And so I had to listen to my body really deeply.
Yeah.
Before my body could say, hold on, mind, just a second, I have something to say too.
So you had to do that pendulum swing.
Yeah.
To have any hope of coming back to any type of equality.
I didn't know that though. It took me a long time to even realize, I probably kept my mind out of the picture longer than I needed to.
It took a lot of us going like, David, I stopped following you 7 minutes ago. All right. 4. Only asking a question when I have no preference what the answer is or if there even is an answer. I like that look. Does this make sense? So this happens a lot in circling when somebody asks someone a question and it's like you can feel like there's something in it for them. That question wants an answer and pretty much thinks it knows what the answer is going to be. And it's like, watch it with that shit. Like, watch those. Whenever I have that feeling, whenever I catch something in me being like, oh, I want to ask this question, I have a policy of making myself ask it to me first. I have to answer it first before I am even beginning to be allowed to ask it to someone else.
What's the if there even is an answer part?
Yeah. So the way I like do this wording thing where instead of being like, why? I tend to ask, do you know why? And often people still hear why, but I very intentionally am like, maybe you don't know why. So like that's the question I'm asking. Do you even know? A lot of this for me came from before I moved to Austin, I spent 2 years doing a practice called listening circle or circle of trust. I think it was born out of the Quaker tradition. If y'all have ever heard the name Parker Palmer, it's practice I think that I learned through his teachings. But we actually spent a whole year before we ever offered a circle of trust. We were practicing what we called open and honest questions, which is I can only ask a question if I think these words are just pointing the flashlight at something that hasn't had light on it yet, and I have no idea what the answer to this question would be, and I don't care if the person actually answers the question. I just have only just spoken because I think it looks like that part of the room is dark. Boom. That's it. Yeah. Just kind of makes some sense. Yeah, and it took us a year of practicing, so just do it because I said so. You're gonna be perfect at it. All right, 5.
What comes up when you ask
Yeah.
the question? For me, that sounds like only ask a question if I'm like actually curious. Is that along the same lines, or is that kind of a different tangent?
Well, I mean, if you're not curious, why ask it?
I can still find, I mean, not right now, but like I can still find a reason to ask a question
Yeah.
if I'm not really curious.
Yeah.
Might still be gold there for both of us or one of us. I don't know.
I think. Yeah. I also want to rush a little bit because I have 1 minute, but
Go for it.
I think if you're even looking at this stuff, I think you're doing some really badass circling. How about that? Yeah? Sound pretty good? Yeah. Able to experience what's happening fully, even if I don't understand it. So we kind of talked about that already.
I think if we're gonna get, if I had to pick one thing from tonight, I'd be like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know how to do that.
Yeah.
Number 4.
5. Yeah.
Whoa.
Because if I look at being a human, being on a planet, out in the middle of space, we really fully understand less than 1% of what's really happening, and yet man, it's fucking happening.
Yeah.
So I want to do that.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Welcome. Seeing experiences as collaborative instead of adversarial. I'm so sorry I saved this for last and ran out of time because I'm really into this one right now. But this one's a really big one for me. This is my newest understanding now of I've been realizing especially with board games. At my house we play board games a lot, and that's kind of the newest up and coming thing is that there's these collaborative board games where we're all actually working together to win the game.
Wow.
Whereas historically games were always competitive, but that's getting more and more true, I think, with video games, with all sorts of things. And even in kind of businesses and companies that are, trying to earn money, there's still more how can we actually collaborate with the world, collaborate with other companies, kind of create an ecosystem that has this win-win thing going on. And I think this is one of our best evolutions we've got going right now. And I think this one's definitely worth putting some energy into. If anytime you're feeling an experience of there's an us or a them or a me and a you, Like, see if you can find a perspective where it's like, oh no, we're also an us. Like, we're in collaboration somehow here. I think that alone could really change a lot of the energy that happens at circling, especially here in Austin. Yeah. Okay. So we are technically out of time. These are the review of the week one ones, feeling my feelings without believing their conclusions, assuming that I misunderstood your words by at least 20%. When I want someone or something else to be different, I do it first, utilizing discernment in my choices, and always upgrading my armor. Quick review. But I also put the recording of last week's on the Facebook page, so you can check that out there. And I have one recommendation. If you notice a moment when you think the facilitator should be doing something different because they're the facilitator, first consider doing it yourself. If the thought persists after that, put yourself in the mindset of birthday circling the facilitator, then ask them, what's it like to be you right now? Only ask if you're ready to truly listen, because their answer might be something you're totally not expecting. Okay, we did it. Thank you. We're going to take about 15 minutes, and then there will be a 2-hour surrendered leadership circle if you want to stay for that. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to put some music on.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.